Hello and welcome to ADA Majlis program. I'm Anastasia Lavrina and our special guest today is Emin Huseynov, Special Representative of President of the Republic of Azerbaijan in the liberated territories included in the Karabakh Economic Region. Mr. Huseynov, hello and welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. It's a big pleasure for us, for ADA students, to listen your opinion about the situation in our liberated Karabakh. And the first question, in just one of your speeches, you mentioned that Aghdam is being developed quicker than any other region and the liberated territories. So what helps to move ahead in such a quick manner?
Well, I would actually like to make a little bit of a correction here. When I said that Aghdam is far ahead than other areas, liberated areas, I didn't mean to imply there is something special going about Aghdam. The reconstruction process as a whole is a holistic process carried out by government in a well-coordinated manner, in a systemic manner, in a well-planned manner. It just happened that way that Aghdam was the first city, liberated territory area where His Excellency Mr. President has laid the foundation, and the master plan of the city was approved first among other areas. So naturally, as soon as the master plan has been approved, we commenced large-scale reconstruction rehabilitation activities. The liberated areas are the size of Lebanon. It's a huge territory.
Especially Aghdam.
There's a ghost city. There's nothing left intact. All the cultural monuments, the residential household buildings, the industrial capacity, everything. And certainly, going about rebuilding this is not something written somewhere as in a textbook, or there is no readily available recipe. And of course, here we are trying to learn in the process. So this is the challenge, but to overcome that challenge, the government is coordinating all activities, trying to make sure what we're going to do, what we're building, is going to stay and be sustainable. That we don't have to do it twice, 3 times, 4 times. So it's actually done once and for good. And that
For a long
helps.
period of time.
Yes.
Exactly. You mentioned special different directions and the projects which is being implemented, especially in Aghdam city, which, as we agreed already, it was completely destroyed during the 30 years of occupation. What projects are given the priority there? What should be done first and what has already been?
Well, naturally speaking, when we started, first of all, the most important thing was, of course, planning. The planning includes not just planning of urban and rural places, but planning of all activities. And naturally, number one priority is security and demining. As you know, the former front line, as we call it, was heavily polluted. It is still, and I think it's going to take decades for all this pollution, effects of this pollution, to be fully eradicated. But this 5 kilometer wide former front line, which goes along about 200 kilometers long front line, it was so heavily polluted that it took us, for example, in Aghdam, it took us a year to lay the electricity to the city. So, it's been days and nights of very hard and tedious work of the miners who actually cleaned it up inch by inch. And I really here would like to thank all our miners who are working tirelessly, every day to actually make sure that we speed up the reconstruction process, that our citizens are enabled to return to their homes as fast as possible.
You know, when we speak about the reconstruction, it's not only about the government. Definitely, the government invest and help as much as it can and even more. But we know that different entrepreneurs, companies, local and international, are also willing to participate in the recovery work and then
Yes.
after. So why Aghdam is so much interested for the investors and entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I would like to come back to this question, but before I delve into that area, I want to explain what the government needs to do for private sector to be willing to come.
To inspire them.
Yes, to motivate them, to enable them. You know, of course, in normal situations, we wouldn't deal with the mine issue. Now, assume that we have taken that issue off the table and the area has been demined, which I think now we can pretty much confidently say that certain corridors have been opened to the liberated areas, and we can actually work inside the liberated areas to reconstruct and rehabilitate the infrastructure. The second in line, of course, what government needs to do is to lay down the necessary basic infrastructure. What we're talking about here is, of course, highways, railways, electricity, water supply, gas supply, communication lines, and all of that, are necessary prerequisites of a meaningful social life in the liberated areas. So we need to have that basic infrastructure, and then once that is ensured, then we need to build social infrastructure and economic infrastructure. So government is a party which provides all the necessary enabling conditions, security, infrastructure, the various privileges, preferences, business climate, necessary regulatory framework. And then private sector in this kind of situation, of course, they would willingly come and invest, especially when it comes to the rehabilitation of Karabakh, which is so dear to every Azerbaijani. Now, these are about the local investors, but also foreign investors. We see a lot of interest from foreign investors to come and invest. And it's new opportunities, especially given the geographic location of the Karabakh and the economic region and Eastern Zangezur economic region. There are enormous opportunities.
You know, that's my next question exactly. You're speaking about active development of Aghdam, different projects being implemented there, and its specific location, geographic location. I want you to tell a bit more about the importance of this region for the future development of a full Karabakh region, and even more. Europe is now looking for an additional transport routes to connections with Asia, and South Caucasus, especially Azerbaijan and liberated territories, can play a significant role in this process.
Absolutely.
Please share your experience.
Absolutely, it's a very good question. I will start with Aghdam. Even if you look at the map, Aghdam is right in the center, and to all different important parts of Azerbaijan in the same distance. For example, it's about the same distance from Aghdam to Nakhchivan, from Aghdam to Kazakh, from Aghdam to Bilaswar, from Aghdam to Shusha, Zengilan, Kalbajar. So it's actually more or less in the same distance from key regional centers of Azerbaijan, and also it's right at the center of the gates to Karabakh. So when it comes to overall the liberated areas, we can discuss different aspects of it. The most important aspect, of course, in terms of world economy, regional economy, is this access to world, international, open waters, open sea, and transport logistical channels linking to these open waters. And that's important because geopolitically, as we are now witnessing, there are some tensions towards north, there are some tensions towards south. Azerbaijan, Caucasus is the only safe haven and the shortest haven way to get traffic and cargo from east to west. And it's actually not just a matter of distance, it's also a matter of cost. So with all this difficult and strange things happening around us, there's a huge potential for this transit to take place along the Zangezur corridor, and I think this is the project that presents its opportunities to all parties. It's a win-win project for everyone. There are a lot of industrial potential, a lot of raw materials for construction sector. There's a lot of touristic potential. We're talking about beautiful, picturesque mountains and lakes, and nature is just blessed in that area of Azerbaijan. And I think for active tourism, for hiking, for medical tourism, there are a lot of opportunities in these areas, which will all be, of course, developed, and that is naturally very interesting for private investors. But with all that to come into effect, to be fully realized, of course, there's a need for regional cooperation and long overdue peace in the region.
You mentioned regional cooperation. We know that immediately after the end of the Second Karabakh War, His Excellency Mr. President Ilham Aliyev, speaking about importance to sign peace agreement with Armenia, importance to develop logistic cooperation, transport cooperation, the platform 3+3, which is actively being supported from the European Union, Russia, Iran, Turkey. What about Armenia? From your personal experience, do you feel that this government is ready to be part of such a global projects we are talking about now?
Well, I surely hope so. I think it's very difficult to judge about that by looking at what's happening right now on the streets of Yerevan, or some rhetorics of Armenian officials or non-governmental organizations representing the public opinion in Armenia. But it is so unfortunate that after everything that happened, after 30 years of occupation, and finally, once these territories have been liberated by our victorious army, of course headed by our victorious Supreme Commander-in-Chief, it's very obvious what is the state of these territories. I mean, for 30 years, these territories have been looted. Now, post-war period, Azerbaijan has provided its proposal, comprised of 5 key principles for concluding the peace agreement. It's time to acknowledge the new realities, new geopolitical realities, and we need to acknowledge the fact that there are 2 countries in this region, and they don't have any territorial claims to each other. And if that is the case, then they have to acknowledge their borders. And if this is the core fundamental principle of anyone who wants to coexist, we would like to coexist in this region with all our neighbors, including Armenia. This has been mentioned a number of times by the leader of Azerbaijan, that we are multi-confessional, multi-cultural country. There are so many national minorities living in Azerbaijan, and unlike Armenia, which is a mono-ethnic country, Uh, and all these representatives of different minorities, cultural and national minorities, they feel like part of one family, one country, one motherland, which we call Azerbaijan. There's no problem with this. And we are ready, of course, to consider the people of Armenian ethnicity one of them. The purpose of all this reconstruction and rehabilitation is to build back what has been destroyed for 30 years. Build back, construct, to make it better, a living place for people who will live there, regardless of their ethnicity. The people of Republic of Azerbaijan.
Exactly, different ethnic groups will be able to settle in Karabakh, and in my opinion, unique multicultural development of Azerbaijan, which is being addressed in many countries all around the world, is also will be implemented in Karabakh after its complete reconstruction. So you mentioned unique culture Aghdam had before, and many buildings which unfortunately were destroyed, but now the government doing its best to at least to recover as it was before, humanitarian cultural projects being implemented. And Shusha is a cultural capital of Azerbaijan, definitely a lot of events we observed last year. In your opinion, what kind of humanitarian, probably cultural projects we need to implement there, the conferences to be organized to show the international community of what Karabakh is and how it will look in near future?
Well, first of all, I would like to emphasize that, of course, Shusha for all of us is a very dear place. It's something that very difficult to explain in just words. You have to feel it. So, but I am not so much in favor of focusing all these activities around Shusha only. I think
definitely.
it has to be held very dear and not so easily attainable. You know, it's like a symbol of our culture, of our history, of what Azerbaijan is. And I think it's important for other liberated areas to also be more exposed to various international events, and I think this process has started, and perhaps we will make it even more visible. I have to say that we have held the first international academic conference in Aghdam. It was last year. It was held in the city of Aghdam. With a lot of local and foreign academicians, scientists, scholars coming, and they discussed the impulses for development, for economic developments coming from Aghdam. It is indeed very important to mention that Aghdam is not just an industrial center or economic activity center, but it's also part of that overall culture, that we are talking about. For example, there were times that a lot of people who lived in Aghdam, they had some relatives in Shusha, and vice versa. So Shusha and Aghdam, they're somehow very interestingly connected. There's some connection which is very important to maintain. And it's not coincident that this famous Karabakh music festival first was held in Aghdam, in Abdal village of Aghdam, then in Shusha, and then in Aghdam again before occupation, and only after the liberation of Shusha and Aghdam, the fourth and fifth festivals were held in Shusha over the last 2 years.
Maybe the next one will
Maybe
be
hopefully the next one could be in Aghdam. I'm hoping for that, but we will see. But apart from them, we've held a number of various interesting cultural and humanitarian events in Aghdam. We had the interesting event by the famous painters who came and painted in front of each cultural monument in Aghdam, and then they did an exhibition, which is something very dear to people of Aghdam and to all of us. We also held a Novruz holiday concert in Shahbular Castle. I think that was an interesting, very good event, very memorable. Going forward, we have very interesting plans. I think we're hoping that sometime in fall, already the preparations are underway. Sometime in fall, we're planning to hold a national urban forum in Aghdam, with the auspices under the auspices of UN Habitat, which is going to, host a lot of about 400, 500, guests from all over the world, where they will discuss the urban planning issues, how the cities are being built, so we can share our experience and we can learn from others. That's going to be very useful. So we construct, we rebuild, and we send the message of peace. We want to live and coexist together. And as our president said, we will make Karabakh a paradise, and we are driven by that motto day and night, tirelessly working towards that goal.
Exactly. There is another statement which is very famous. Now all roads lead to Karabakh.
Yes.
And the international community, you rightly mentioned, are mentioning that Azerbaijani government doing its best to make Karabakh be developed to be a paradise and be appropriate for living of those who lived there before and others who would like to live in the future. And one more question I have. On 27th of May, His Excellency Mr. President was in Zangilan district in Ahali village, and he announced the big return for the people who were waiting for around 30 years at a specific moment. And Aghdam, do you know, probably you will open a small secret, when should we expect a big return to Aghdam?
Yes, I wish I knew, but that's a very good question. It's not just a question; it's inspiration, I must say. Just the word return makes you feel emotionally very positive and inspired. But yes, that's true. Agali village is the first smart village, and the government of Azerbaijan carried out that project, knowing that this is something going to be, out of box, very creative, very interesting, special case and model. Now, but we cannot expect possibly that all the other territories can and will be done in the same pace and the same manner. Of course, we need to just showcase that country, we as a country, as a team, we are capable of doing it, and here's the case. And it's very good that we are now already starting the Great Return Program, and it starts with Zengilan, Agali village. Next in line is the second smart village that is being now prepared as a project preparation, project design is being underway. For Dövlet Yarlı village, which is in Fizuli area. And but the truth of the fact is, yes, this is again, this is very. I'm very excited to say this, but yes, we're coming closer and closer to that day when we will announce the overall grand return program. But we're not there yet.
Has the process started?
The process has been going on for a year and a half. everything that is being done for that purpose, is to get to the point when we can say confidently that our citizens can return safely and again comfortably to their homes. I think now when we talk about Aghdam, I think we're making good progress. But I need to be very realistic with you. We haven't fully overcome all our challenges yet. But with all said and done, now that we're starting building the social infrastructure in the downtown, in the center of Aghdam, this year, next year, I think maybe by the end of 2026, and that's the target that I am aiming to fulfill. Maybe by the end of 2026, we will have all the important conditions, necessary conditions for fulfilling meaningful social life in the city of Aghdam, in the central part of Aghdam city. And then the first group of our repatriates, our citizens, our compatriots will be able to return after that. So that's what I'm aiming at. But I think we will have to work day and night to get to that objective. So,
Mr. Huseynov, thank you so much for your job, for your activity, for your contribution. You're doing really very, very important job. Wish you good luck and good health, and thank you so much for joining our project today.
I would like to thank you for inviting me, for having me, and it's my pleasure. Of course, always we're ready to provide all the necessary information to our citizens. We're happy to welcome you in Aghdam, in Fizuli, in Hojavand, in Subovishan. Anytime you can come and actually see what's happening on the ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, with great pleasure.
Thank you.
Just to remind you, watched ADA Majlis Media Project, our special program with our special guest, Emin Huseynov, special representative of President of the Republic of Azerbaijan in the liberated territories in Karabakh economic region. I'm Anastasia Lavrina. Stay with us and see you in the next edition.